let's turn our attention to the debate that took place yesterday, because you can see Arizona's not happy about it. You know, the Kari Lake and Ruben Gallego debate was a victory for Kari when Arizona Central and the Arizona Republic comes out and complains about the TV. This is awful TV. It didn't teach us anything. What a waste of time. You can see the report is the only debate here seemed like it was the Kari Lake show on Wednesday. It was the Kari Lake show, and moderators seemed powerless to stop it. Lake, the Republican candidate, met for the first time. It was frustrating. It was maddening. Though, given the way Lake treats these things, I'm not sure what else we could have expected. Domination. They covered a variety of issues, but you walked away feeling like you haven't learned much. And Kari Lake got away with it. Oh, that's what you call cope. So that's how you can just say, you know how this went. I've got several clips of this. We'll poke around. Obviously, in Arizona, the border came up time and time again, and Kari Lake was hitting it hard. Said, we're losing a generation of young people to fentanyl, and Ruben should know better. He should stop this, but he hasn't been able to do it in all his time in government.
500,000 pounds of drugs seized at ports of entry. What is the bigger threat to you, the flow of migrants or the flow of drugs? 1 minute.
They're both terrible. It's a war against America. We have an invasion of people coming in. And I remember seeing video of, they look like soldiers coming in, soldiers from other countries coming and pouring across our border. And then we have the cartels empowered by Ruben Gallego trafficking drugs into our state. We are the funnel for fentanyl. I have met so many parents and loved ones on the campaign trail who come up to me and they wait usually till the end of an event. You can spot it. There's a sorrow that you see in their face. And they come up to me at the end of an event. And they say, I lost my son. He was 16 years old. He took a half of what he thought was a Xanax pill, and he's not with us. A 20-year-old daughter, a young mother. We are losing a generation of people. We're losing an entire generation of young people. And you should know better, Ruben. You've even said this. You have admitted that you have a loved one who was a convicted felon drug trafficker who's trafficked drugs into our country.
Mr. Gallego, a minute to respond to this.
I want to finish this because I feel for you. You got emotional talking about that, a close relative of yours. And for you to continue to vote to empower cartels to bring in fentanyl, which is a weapon of mass destruction, into our country, you talked about the sorrow.
Mr. Gallego, 1 minute.
He talked about the sorrow he felt from having a family member who trafficked drugs and how hard it was for him. And what you're doing to families right now, Ruben, is you're making that be their reality. You're making it so moms and dads out there are losing people because of drugs. Your
Mr.
votes
Gallego.
on the border have empowered the cartels.
And they were trying to cut her off, and Gallego just sat there and took it. You got to speak up there, man. They gave you like 3 opportunities to jump in on it, but he didn't really want to jump in on it too much. And so here's another clip. This one was clipped for us over from Beheezy Tweets, our friend George over there. And they're talking about abortion. Here's another exchange.
Left to the states. I agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said this should be a decision left to the states. Everyone knew it was unconstitutional. And Arizona, and I want to speak to the women of Arizona. I'm the only woman on this stage right now. I don't think I'm standing next to a woman. And so I understand how difficult these choices may be. And we have the choice as Arizonans to decide what our abortion law will be. It's going to be up to us. And we're going to decide in November when we go and cast our ballot. And Ruben Gallego wants to take that choice away from us. He wants to take it back to the federal government in some back room with Chuck Schumer and decide what our abortion law will be here in Arizona. It's going to be up to us. I want us to have that choice. And whatever the law ends up being, whatever our choice ends up being, I will respect. I come from a large family. I'm the youngest of 9, and we had 8 girls. So I know a lot about women. I have a daughter myself, and I want to make sure that we have the choice to decide what our abortion law is here in Arizona. He knows, and Steve, you know this as well, we're running for federal office. This isn't going to be decided in the Senate. This is not. And I will tell you this, I will never pass a federal abortion ban, nor will I approve or vote for federal tax tax dollars being used for abortion. But here's what I will do, because I'm a mother and I care deeply about women. And because things have gotten so desperate in this country, more and more people are choosing to have an abortion because they can't afford to live, let alone take care of a baby. I don't want any woman out there to make that choice because she can't afford to live, because of the votes that people like Ruben Gallego have made that have made our economy practically collapse. It's on life support right now. So I want to go to the U.S. Senate and pass the most pro-family legislation. I want to make sure that UVF is protected. I have many friends who are here. They're my friends today because of UVF. And I have many of my friends who have had children and experienced the joy of motherhood and parenthood because of UVF. This is sad because Ruben Gallego doesn't really care about women's rights. When it comes to our women, our girls who are athletes, he wants us to have to compete against men, biological men.
And went off on that. And Gallego was not very responsive. Now, I've got a bunch of clips queued up. Let's see what this one was.
Mrs. Lake, a minute to respond.
He voted against President Trump's national emergency on the border. He said the border's not that big of a deal in Arizona when he was talking to people who were donating money to his campaign, and said he's not an expert on the border. We need somebody who understands the threat on the border. And I do. And President Trump does. And on day one, we're going to get busy undoing the damage caused by Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Ruben Gallego, who's voted with him 100% of the time. Can you imagine voting with the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden 100% of the time, especially when it comes to the border? This isn't just about an open border. We've got 20 million people pouring in. They're taking jobs. They're taking housing. This is why nobody can afford housing anymore, because we're having to compete with people who've come in illegally. I am completely opposed to an open border. I am 100% for legal immigration. My mother-in-law came here legally, and all of the incredible immigrants of this country who came here legally are horrified by the votes that my opponent has taken. They're horrified by what Kamala Harris has done. And by the way, that piece of legislation, thank you for reminding me, I am not for it. And it's because it would codify into law
She's a steamroller.
5,000 people every day coming in illegally. That means 5,000 people every day would be pouring across our border illegally. That law did nothing to stop child sex trafficking. 350,000 children have been trafficked across our border since Ruben Gallego and Kamala Harris opened up that border. 350,000, and they've lost track of them.
And you can see this guy this entire time after that 1 minute, right? 1 minute's up. They give her a minute to respond. And you see that finger right there? He's putting that finger up there. Okay, you're cut off. And she's just a bulldozer. She just keeps going. And she should, right? That's how you dominate the debate stage. Absolutely appropriate to do that. It's expected. You're not just going to sit there and take it. Ruben Gallego did. He also got asked about Social Security, and here was this exchange.
Specifically, you mentioned Social Security specifically.
Yeah.
How do you maintain it? Because Arizona has one of the highest populations of seniors, and they're worried about this. How do you maintain Social Security without privatizing it? 30 seconds, please.
I want people who are on Social Security to know you have paid into that. That is an insurance benefit you've paid into, and we are not touching that. Ruben Gallego, Kamala Harris, and the Democrats will decimate it. They want to make it so you can't, the age that you have to be to qualify to get your Social Security, they want to raise that. And they also want to take Medicare. He promised he wouldn't touch Medicare. They wouldn't ruin Medicare and touch it, and they have. He wants Medicare for all, which really means Medicaid for all, and that will be a disaster for Arizona families. I have to mention the prescription drug prices. He touts that he brought that down. His vote in the Inflation Reduction Act actually caused medications to go up for people on Part D.
Thank you.
57% increase in price.
Specifically.
All right. So Kari Lake, and there was more that came out on this because apparently they were digging into his residence. And he said that the DC home, his home in DC was his principal residence. This was an old story. I guess it came back up last night. When he bought a house near the Capitol Hill last year, he claimed his Washington property as his primary residence as part of a special mortgage rate afforded to military veterans. But they also say their Phoenix home is their primary residence. The loan documents for Politico confirmed he counts DC as his primary home, even though his campaign says he lives in Arizona. Yeah. Politically, it means that Kirsten Sinema, who he was running against, who's not running again, may have to explain some things. So, anyways, yeah, this guy's a DC individual. And so the debate continued on last night. He was asked about the border wall, and he says it's just a stupid idea, a stupid Trump idea.
The border wall, and can it upstand and withhold without adding extra security and billions on technology?
I just jotted down Rubin's exact quote. He called it the dumb, stupid border wall. He wrote an op-ed that said why we should never build Trump's wall ever. So we're getting the extreme makeover version of Rubin tonight. Rubin has voted against border security every step of the way. Remember, I covered the state for 27 years. I was in your home, and all that time we watched as career politicians said they were going to secure the border and give us border security, and they never did until President Trump came along and actually secured the border, but he had to do it with one hand tied behind his back because people like my opponent were fighting him every step of the way, would not give a penny for that border wall. That border wall keeps us safe. We've seen it here in Arizona because we've seen those areas where the border wall is there and people aren't coming through. Where there are gaps in it, people are pouring through. And Ruben Gallego has supported every step of the way Kamala Harris, the border czar, and Joe Biden's open border policy, which has ushered in 20 million people illegally, including more than 400,000 convicted criminals, and they've done nothing to secure the border. The only piece of legislation that Mr. Gallego has put forth was not about border security. It was about removing the word illegal alien from anything in the federal government paperwork. He's more worried about semantics than our security. And right now, we know that we have terrorists that are coming through. We're worried about a potential terrorist attack on our home soil. We want to be able to go for a jog in the morning like Laken Riley did and not have to worry about being killed, raped, and murdered. And we're not safe because of the people that have come in. Ruben Gallego has empowered the cartels. I want to finish the border wall. On day one, my first piece of legislation will be to fully fund and expedite the construction of the border wall. It's unfortunate we already paid for the construction materials to do that, but Ruben Gallego and Kamala Harris they sold that $325 million of border material for pennies on the dollar. They gave it away. We could have had that wall
Mrs. Lake.
It's so disgusting what they did. It's selling out your country for pennies on the dollar, literally, and then having foreign invaders come into your country. So Kari Lake crushed it yesterday, and we're excited to see this performance, and we're going to be supporting her and watching her surge to victory in Arizona. All right.